let's get into the next match. It is going to be Kazakhstan taking on Malaysia. So why don't you walk us through the Kazakhstan roster?
All right, so for Kazakhstan, we have Nyman, who is a very popular player. Then we have Hallmark, Gibertox, and Smirto Kotik.
And then on Malaysia, we have Chongur, Lalasong, Gilgamesh, and Revenge CCS. Now, Malaysia, I think, is a really cool country coming into this because this is a country that is actually looking to really vastly improve kind of what it's doing in terms of building infrastructure for competitive Hearthstone. But seeing on the screen here, Kazakhstan, now, this is a place where I feel like most people don't actually know what Kazakhstan looks like, especially in the USA. It's not a place we necessarily interact with a lot on our daily lives. I was reading about it. It's actually 1/3 steppe. The Kazakh steppe makes up 1/3 of the country.
Really?
That's just open plains.
I did not know that.
Thought that was awesome.
But geography in our education system can be a little bit lacking at times, so it certainly doesn't surprise me that Kazakhstan is a lesser-known country to United States citizens.
Don't worry. If you're watching the global games, this is both tournament and also geography lessons, so that's why you have Professor Cora and, her comic relief assistant, Robert Wing. So we're here to teach you about geography in all the different countries.
But specifically, from Group F, we're looking at Kazakhstan and Malaysia. Canada, of course, your choice in this tournament, up 1-0, had a very quick win last week. And France sitting at the bottom, but still a very strong team. They have plenty of time to come back. Belgium and Denmark have yet to play.
Yeah, so we'll see a lot more about this group, which, coming into this, again, the theme of the evening, these two teams right here, both are not necessarily being hailed as like, oh, these teams are definitely advancing out of the group. They're seen as being kind of the more unknown, inoffensively say weaker teams. Teams that, don't necessarily have the strength of name outside of Neyman for Kazakhstan. But why don't you walk us through kind of what we're seeing here from these class selections?
Okay, so our first matchup is going to be Smirto Kotik leading for Kazakhstan and Gilgamesh for Malaysia. We see the mage and the shaman and the hunter. So these are three really strong classes. I have to imagine that you would like to play hunter and mage over shaman just because they seem to be stronger in this current meta. But it is important to note that, yes, Neyman is the best-known player in this matchup, but Chongur for Malaysia is also a very decorated Hearthstone player. So this seems to me like two teams that have a very distinguished leader in the form of a veteran competitive player, and then it'll be interesting to see how well they work with the other three members of the team. So I was completely wrong. It is going to be a shaman mirror in the first matchup of the day.
Haven't seen those in
20
month
minutes.
And a half, 2 months. Whoa, Shaman Mirror has been a while. Now, I do want to point out, Uchiha Sasuke is obviously, as a name, a reference to an anime character. I actually think Gilgamesh is as well. So that is actually an anime I know. So I'm hoping I get the opportunity to talk to Gilgamesh.
It could also be to the historical figure.
No, I'm feeling anime character on this one.
Sure, yeah. We'll go with you.
I'll ask him. I'll find him.
I may not have taken geography, but I did take history. And passed. So.
Nice.
Thanks, Rob.
Good job. On the other side
Professor
of the equation.
Cora. Got to get that degree somewhere. Memology was not offered at the college I went to.
That's why I went to community college. It's just, they have it there.
Yeah.
But Smirto Kotik, actually, so this is a TJ fact. So when I say TJ fact, there's like a 75% chance I'm just being memed on.
And 25% chance that it's going to be about food.
Smirto Kotik's name actually means cats of death.
That just sounds so much cooler than, okay, well.
It's like lions and Savannah High-Mains.
Yeah.
All right, well, we see
it's
them
pretty cool.
On the screen here, Smirto Kotik talking to presumably his teammates. In fact, not even presumably, we're going to say definitely because it's mandated by the rules. And Gilgamesh chilling with company in his own room. It's been kind of interesting to see how the teams have gathered when they have, trouble to get together in the same room because, Death Cat, as we can see on the screen there. It's not always possible to get all of your players in a room. Sometimes you have one or two kind of hanging out somewhere else. But as I mentioned, Smirto Kotik, the name in Russian translates to Death Cat. So it's not Cats of Death. Smirto Kotik only started participating in Hearthstone tournaments this year, but he already has 4 Open Cup victories. So that's, pleasant upside for Neyman, who's kind of leading this group of Kazakhstan players, and his favorite Kazakh dish is besh barmak, which is boiled noodles and meat in a spiced onion sauce. How does that strike you?
Sounds pretty good to me. I like the name. It's a fun one.
All right,
I'd say strong representation from Kazakhstan here.
Not much of an onion guy myself, but we see Gilgamesh has a bunch of years of competitive card game experience outside of Hearthstone, and he plays for the Malaysian team M8 alongside his HGG teammate Revenge CSS. And if I'm getting this correct, he is not the only person on this team to actually play for M8. Lala Song plays as well, and Chonger, just up until recently, was actually playing for M8. And, you know, I brought up before we got the chance to see the actual countries on screen, Malaysia is doing a ton to try to build infrastructure for Hearthstone teams. So M8 actually has 2 rosters. So it's 2 rosters of Hearthstone players. There's a Tier 1 roster and a Tier 2. Tier 1 is Ragnaros, and Tier 2 is Nefarian, which, if you're a lore nerd like me, and you remember Blackrock Mountains where those two were fighting, it's funny to me that Ragnaros is Tier 1. Because they were obviously battling to see... Yeah. So.
I didn't play World of Warcraft, Rob, but I do hearken this to varsity and JV athletics.
Yep.
And in this case, you've got your varsity Hearthstone squad, you've got your JV Hearthstone squad. And obviously, he thinks that Malaysian food is some of the best food in the world. I would hope so. Otherwise, it'd be kind of sad.
Yeah, if you just lived in Malaysia and you're like, I really don't like
Malaysian food.
Malaysian
I hate Malaysian food. That'd be rough.
Having the 2 different teams and the way M8 Gaming is kind of approaching building their Hearthstone infrastructure, it really kind of changes the narrative, in my opinion, for what Malaysia is coming into the global games. This isn't just a situation where you have a group of people thrown together to compete in a global tournament. There's, you know, the opportunity to take this experience and really kind of leverage it in the future as you're going forward and looking at what your esports program looks like, specific to Malaysia. So I'm very excited about that. Curious to see if this could really kind of be the building blocks going forward for that esports program.
It absolutely could be. The Malaysian Major already has had great success in the region. It's just interesting to see how much more infrastructure they can build and really whether or not they can burst onto the Hearthstone scene in other ways, like the Hearthstone Championship Tour. But here we see it is going to be an Elemental Shaman Mirror Volcano in the hand for Kazakhstan. This is... one of my favorite cards coming out of Journey to Ungoro. We don't see it all that often, but it is incredibly strong and a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah, I believe we actually saw Nyria drop Volcano already in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah.
Great spell animation, and we talked about it earlier. Elemental Shaman. There are, you know, still 4 to 6 spots in most of the decks that are kind of being debated in terms of how the deck is built. But the very core of the deck is pretty much old-timey beatdown. You make sure you chain elementals, because when you have the elemental chains going, your cards are a lot better. Frankly, without the elemental chains, most of these cards kind of suck. But when they are chained together, they do some really powerful things. You know, we've seen cards like Blaze Caller, Kalimos, the Primal Lord, even Torvir Stone Shaper, right? Suddenly really good when you have the elemental synergy going.
Well, and here we see Volcano in hand for Gilgamesh as well, so I'm happy to see that it is picking up some steam in Elemental Shaman decks. And you're absolutely right. The condition that Elementals have is very similar to what Dragons used to be, except with Dragons, you could go turn by turn. You just had to have a dragon in your hand. With Elementals, you need to think ahead. If you don't play an Elemental this turn, you know, your Tolvir Stone Shaper won't activate next turn. So it's very important to plan out your turns and really save resources, like with Firefly. You get the Flame Elemental in hand. It's a 1-mana elemental that you can easily fit in going into the later game to try to make your following turn stronger.
I mean, that said, as much as Firefly is seeing play kind of all over the place, just for being kind of a nuts 1-drop in terms of value, you know, in this deck, yeah, you can save that Flame Elemental and decide, okay, I'm going to use it later to ensure that, you know, say I'm drawing off the top of my deck. But what if I draw Kalimos? I'm going to be ready to go. I'm going to drop that elemental. Because of how powerful Flame Tongue is, there's still totally value. And just like next turn, if he wants to, you know, drop another Firefly and then play a Flame Elemental, it's still perfectly reasonable, especially if he drops that Flame Tongue Totem. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what you actually do with, you know, just a 1-drop.
Yeah, especially in Shaman, because it is the class with the most elemental synergy, and then you have, obviously, you know, positional buffs with Flame Tongue Totem. So Firefly is shining in this deck as well as Quest Rogue, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, gotta be a little bit upsetting to Thrall. He actually says elements guide me.
He does.
You know,
He's been saying that forever.
Yeah,
we finally know
now,
why.
Now other classes are also being guided by the elements. Can you trust the elements anymore?
Maybe he feels betrayed.
Yeah.
Needs to go back to old friends like Mana Tide Totem and Fire Elemental to get the job done.
Yeah, Fire Elemental being back in the meta is actually something that just does my heart good. Fire Elemental, like way back in the very beginning of Hearthstone, this was like closed beta. So before I ever worked at Blizzard, I used to write for a fan site. And I was actually in the closed beta on day one. The first class I went for was Shaman because I saw Fire Elemental.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this card's nuts. This is just an absurd card. It is so powerful. And if anything, Shaman was so just disgustingly rich in terms of options that Fire Elemental was benched for a while. You're like, you know what? I don't need a 6-mana 6/5 that does 3 direct damage. Like, I don't need this. But now it's back. You know, Thrall's like, look, come here. I need you to chain that gap between 5 and 7 before I get to Blaze Caller. And, you know, Fire Elemental into Blaze Caller is an extremely powerful set of turns.
It really is. A meta where a 6-mana 6/5 deal 3 direct damage to anything, when that's not playable, we've got some problems. So I'm certainly happy to see it playable again. Fireplume Harbinger coming into hand. That's another new one. It's a tiny Emperor Thaurissan type effect. Battlecry reduce the cost of all elementals in your hand by 1. So you really want to try and get, obviously, as much value out of that as you possibly can. And it's turn 3, you have a taunt up. I'm thinking this is Mana Tide every day.
Yeah, interesting to see Fireplume Harbinger because you and I were actually discussing this just recently, that Shaman has so little card draw outside of Mana Tide Totem that it's difficult to really get the kind of hand buff you want on the Fireplume Harbinger. And one of the upsides of Emperor Thaurissan was, you know, even if you didn't have a lot of cards in hand, it's still a 5/5 body, so that's incredibly powerful in its own right. Whereas the Fireplume Harbinger really just kind of, you put it down and it dies. It's probably not going to get much done unless there's like a Flame Tongue Totem or a Bloodlust. So really interested to see why Gilgamesh chose to include that in the deck.
I've been seeing it here and there. I know Savitz was playing it yesterday on ladder, having some success with it. I believe his build was a bit different. It was very heavy elemental, like elementals. Every turn you could possibly play elementals.
Sure. I mean, it's worth noting out that, you know, as much as I respect Yane as a deck builder, you know, he's that guy out there who's just trying weird stuff to try weird stuff. It's kind of like back in the day.
Sometimes the weird stuff sticks, and sometimes it's good.
It's like olden Twitter where retweets weren't necessarily endorsements. Like, that's pretty much, if you see Yane streaming a deck, it's not because he thinks it's like a great deck. It's also just because, like, that's how he becomes such a great player, is kind of playing in, like, the wide sandbox of seeing, like, what works. So, you know, I want you to call me up when, like, I don't know, Chalky's playing it, or George C's playing
running
it.
around with,
you know,
with some wacky stuff.
You know what? When Terrence is running it, call me up. That's when I'm like, all right.
Okay.
If Terrence likes it, I like it. Yeah. All right. In the meantime, just drawing more cards here. The second Mana Tide Totem was drawn, and, you know, you see no situation where it immediately dies. You think it probably will, but might as well just play it down in a situation where you think it might not die.
Well, there is really only 2 things here that could have killed the Mana Tide. It would have been Jade Claws and then Flame Tongue Totem, or Lightning Bolt, but I don't think any elemental shamans are really running Lightning Bolt. So you forced a Lightning Storm with your first Mana Tide. That was pretty good. The second one didn't do quite as well, but it's the risk you have to take sometimes to try and get ahead.
Yeah, meanwhile, here Gilgamesh has a pretty, I would say, okay hand for Fireplume Harbinger. He can go ahead and make that Blaze Caller 6 mana, which could prove to be relevant here, but it just kind of depends on when exactly he wants to pull the trigger on getting those discounts.
It's tough to say. You don't want to be too greedy because you do need to have 2 mana to fit in the Fireplume Harbinger on an off turn. And looking at the turns going forward, he has a lot of great cards that fill up all of his mana and use it very efficiently. So yeah, Gilgamesh looking like he's going to pull the plug on the Fireplume Harbinger here, get discounts on both the Flame Elementals, the Blaze Caller, and the Fire Elemental. That's pretty great value.
Yeah, I mean, it will certainly allow him to dump his hand, I guess, more effectively. 4 minions. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm having trouble still feeling like this is like a card I would ever want to include, unless your deck, you know, you see I have Blackpaw, not an elemental, Hex, not an elemental. Like, how many elementals, I wonder, do you have to run before that card is actually just, you know, up to what I would consider snuff.
Well, you have Hot Spring Guardian, Servant of Kalamos, of course, Blaze Caller, maybe you have Stone Sentinel. You have the Fireflies and the Flame Elementals. Fire Elemental, it's a high density of elemental minions in the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can, I mean, you have to remove cards to play the Fire Plume Harbinger, so something's got to go.
Right. Yeah, and to be fair to Gilgamesh, you know, we haven't seen what all exactly is in his deck. Now, you brought up Stone Sentinel, and looking up at Smirto Kodak's hand, we actually see 2 copies, and this is one of those minions that, with Elemental Shaman as it's developed, I really haven't seen a lot of. It kind of feels like, yeah, I mean, you get a lot of value out of it, but it's not necessarily that valuable that it necessarily warrants, as you were talking about, one of those spots where you have to cut something else for.
Yeah, it is interesting because Stone Sentinel, I think, was one of the cards that was really thought very highly of going into the expansion. And then after we've actually had a chance to play with it, people are liking it less and less. So it's still finding its way into some Elemental Shaman builds, but it's not the nuts turn 7 that I think everybody thought it was going to be. And it was kind of an awkward turn 5 for Kazakhstan. They had not played an Elemental on the previous turn because they were overloaded from Lightning Storm and had to just play Flame Tongue Totem. So Servant of Kalamos was not active, which is why Hot Spring Guardian had to come down on 5 to make room for Kalamos on 6.
Well, let me tell you a little story about Stone Sentinel.
Let me
What
hear
if I could offer you a 7-mana minion that, when it came down, made 2 accompanying minions?
All right, I'm going to counter you. What if I could offer you a 7-mana minion that whenever your opponent played a spell,
No, I
a
see what you-
3/5
no,
minion
yep,
would be
keep
spawned?
going. Okay.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, right.
And then whenever they played another spell, the 3/5 minion would gain 2 attack.
Do you think Trogzor was just sitting there like, why couldn't I have gone up against this 7-drop?
Poor Trogzor.
Ooh, heralded it. If you don't know much about Trogzor, 7-mana 6/6 was widely believed when I believe it was Goblins versus Gnomes was being previewed that he was just going to straight up come out and just be like this crazy 7-drop. Streamers and pro players everywhere were saying, this is it. This is what we wanted. We're getting it. And then Dr. Boom kind of just showed up and was like, oh.
Heh 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 hoo hoo heh heh.
That noise, no joke, was actually my text tone for a while. It was amazing because I didn't hear it enough at Hearthstone. But
oh,
yeah.
I don't believe that for
Stone
a
Sentinel.
second.
Stone Sentinel, unfortunately, just has yet to really make it into the mainstream Elemental Shaman list because, yeah, you get a pile of stats, but the stats necessarily haven't proven to be that advantageous, or maybe just not enough stats. So interesting to see, though, that Smirto Kodak has included it because I widely assume here that with this Kazakhstan team, that Naaman is probably to some degree involved in kind of the selection process of what gets run. And this, I don't want to like necessarily dwell on Stone Sentinels. I'll just say like it is a card that surprises me because it's yet to necessarily have that big splash. That I'm surprised that Naaman and the rest of Kazakhstan are running it. That was a There should have been a TLDR or TLDR like cliff note that
Stone
ran,
Sentinel is interesting.
Yeah,
We'll see if it pays off.
TLDR not sold.
Yeah, I don't think I am either. And then here we saw on turn 6, Aya Blackpaw was drawn. Yes, it would have been more efficient for the mana, but we're going into turn 7, which means that Smirto Kotak needs to play an Elemental this turn. Servant of Kalamos is exactly that.
Sure, and you know, you had the Elemental chain going anyway. Might as well get the value. And looking at these hands now, I don't necessarily think we've really interjected too much what our lines of play would look like, but I just got to point out, this is like one of the most confusing sets of hands I've ever looked at, even including like Freeze Mage and some of the more control-oriented decks, because you're just kind of like, well, I guess we do 5 damage to something, and then they do 5 damage to something.
And then we do
it's
it
like
again.
catapults are just up there, and they're just getting ready to fire back and forth.
I mean, eventually, minions will kill each other. You'll deal 5 damage to a lot of things, and one team will have the last remaining minion.
I actually think this would be the sort of match that if you were watching it on TiVo, you'd actually just like fast forward through like the
Get me
15
to the
minutes
end.
of
I want the
minion-based
spoilers.
combat. Yeah, and
It's going to be a long one, friends.
we have seen just tonight, you know, there are some decks out there right now that have an air of finality to them, and they have a point where they reach this critical mass, and their win condition is unveiled, and then the game's over.
Yeah.
But this is a mirror match between 2 decks that don't have that.
It's a slow burn.
Yep. They're going to grind each other out for resources this is an old-fashioned, who makes the better trade? You know, what's actually in the decks? Does Stone Sentinel, which we brought up earlier, become a point of relevance because of, you know, something like Flame Tongue Totem? So I guess I just want to point out that there's a lot of uncertainty in this mirror match because I myself have not run into it nor seen it. When I was playing Shaman for like 2 days straight, I never ran into another Shaman. That's honestly Thrall's position right now in the meta.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, but it's kind of nice.
I mean, for me, I'm thinking it's kind of like pre-Ungoro Dragon Priest Mirror, where both decks are going to be generating a lot of additional cards from their minions. You're getting a lot of value, and eventually one player is just going to have the higher value minions. They're going to have more minions. They'll be able to take the board when the other player just can't keep up.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that is pretty much akin to how this is going to have to go. There's a lot of the same hard removal like the pre-Ungoro Dragon Priest had. The minions work in a very similar fashion.
I mean, there's other big break points too, right? You would look at, you know, does my opponent run Lightning Storm? I don't run Lightning Storm. You know, do they run Volcano? Those are just, there's so many question marks to this matchup for, you know, for Smertokodic, for Gilgamesh, to where every single turn is probably worthy of being a rope turn because you have to consider so many different lines where things could go wrong.
Also, it's important to mention there's just so much burn potential in these decks with Blaze Caller and Fire Elemental, and then obviously Flame Tongue Totem, Alakir the Windlord. You have a lot more burst potential than Dragon Priest ever did. The most they were going to deal you from hand was 6 with Brand Brownsbeard, Blackwing Corruptor, and that was like a rare occasion. But here, 1 Blaze Caller, 5 to face. So it's something you got to keep in mind.
All right, well, taking a look at what Smertokodic has, yeah, the obvious read is, okay, I Blaze Caller the Fire Elemental goes away, and then he has to answer the 6/6, right? And I think that's a fairly straightforward play. You could go onto the Stone Sentinel, but I mean, you don't have a Flame Tongue Totem in hand, so really how are you planning to kind of abuse that? So instead you play the Blaze Caller. Gilgamesh now knows what came off that Servant of Kalamos and can kind of go from there, but a Volcano could be something that becomes really relevant in the next couple turns if the board continues to spiral, because now anything you play down is pretty much just going to get traded into, and initiative goes to Smertokodic, so you're not really getting anything that feels super good. So wouldn't be surprised if we see... No, I mean, look, Volcano's 5. The elementals that you want to play are all 6. You know, Eye of Blackpaw 6.
You would want to develop alongside Volcano. It is a little board reset. It's like a tiny Deathwing of sorts, but you need to develop alongside it. Otherwise, your opponent is just going to have initiative once again. So yeah, to your point, really awkward that all of the elementals cost 6. You just can't play anything alongside Volcano when you do decide that it's time.
I do want to point out, though, that the inclusion of Volcano, now that I think about it, actually makes Fire Plume Harbinger feel better. Because it reminds me a lot of the Elemental Destruction turn. Like, you play Elemental Destruction, you reset the board, you develop, and then you don't really get a next turn unless you unlock your mana crystals. But in a way less dramatic way, that's kind of how it feels with Volcano and then Fire Plume Harbinger. Because you would discount, like, Fire Elemental and then play it alongside Volcano.
Yeah.
And then, you blow into the board, and then you yourself get a board of some note, but...
Then you're overloaded 2 next turn, but if you're pulling it on turn 10, it doesn't really matter at that point.
I mean, he could Volcano, clear a board, and then he could play double Flame Elemental into Hot Spring Guardian, but that is not an intimidating board, especially at this point in the game.
I mean, just looking at these hands, yes, they're both relatively the same size, but Smertokodic's hand is much higher value. 2 Stone Sentinels and a Tovir Stone Shaper versus Blaze Caller and Aya, and 2 Flame Elementals. It's looking like if the last person to play a minion is going to win this game, it's going to be Smertokodic at this point, but hey, they gladly prove me wrong because it's still very early. Too early to tell.
This honestly is starting to feel like watching a game of Battleship. You're like, A4. It's like, you sunk my Blaze Caller.
B5, you sunk my Fire Elemental.
Oop, nope, just hit a healing totem. Oh, man. Okay, well, here comes that Stone Sentinel and, that we've seen thus far from Gilgamesh's deck. No Stone Sentinels there. So we'll have to see if this ends up being the difference. Now, I mean, it's worth pointing out, the 2/3s come with taunt, so if you're not running Feral Spirits, I am in no way Twitch, Reddit, Twitter, I'm in no way saying...
Rob Wing says Stone Sentinel takes place of Feral Spirits.
No. I just get an email from Ben, he's like, Rob? No, that's not how that works. No, but...
3 mana and 7 mana are very different.
But I'm saying, you know, the ability to generate 2/3s with taunt, you know, obviously as Feral Spirits has proven, that's powerful. It's just, you're also paying for, you're paying 4 more mana for a 4/4 body. Also, it had to be activated by an elemental.
Yeah.
So...
Well, yeah, you get it all in one card. That's great.
Yeah.
But you're playing it against Shaman, which has a relatively easy time of dealing with large boards of small-ish minions. Servant of Kalamos is a great pickup alongside the Volcano, however, but these are abysmal Discover options.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where Unbound Elemental felt good in the meta like a year and a half, 2 years ago, but
yeah,
there's just not a lot of synergy, especially now that the kind of overload build-around cards, Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem, are gone, so I don't mind the Igneous Flame.
Yeah, Igneous Elemental's fine.
Yeah.
It creates 2 more Flame Elementals in your hand. Are you really going to need those at this point? Probably not, but it's the best of the bad options here. Though I think last week we saw an Elemental Shaman get 2 Kalamos the Primal Lords off of their Servant of Kalamos for a total of 3 in the deck. Yeah, that's not the case in this matchup. These Servants have been significantly weaker than what we saw last week.
Yeah, and from a Discover standpoint, the Servant of Kalamos for Shaman, you got some pretty decent options. Even like Stormwatcher we were talking about. Yeah, Stormwatcher immediately you look at it and go, okay, arena card. But if you're just getting it off of Discover, this goes back to the Hydrologist Paladin Secret argument. If I don't have to run Stormwatcher, I'm actually pretty okay with Stormwatcher.
If I get a 31st card when everybody else has 30, and the 31st card just happens to be Stormwatcher,
yeah,
I'm okay with that.
You take that. It's a 4 mana 8/8 with Wind Fury.
Yeah.
It looks really cool in golden form.
7 mana 4/8. You just said 4 mana 8/8, and I temporarily had I had a living nightmare.
Yeah, why is that
I had a
card
moment.
Ooh, nice. This is the totem
really
you
good.
wanted to roll. Did I say 4 mana 8/8?
You did.
Ugh.
I got very scared there for a second.
Okay, so I mean,
Things are starting to look up for Gilgamesh.
board is clear. That's fine. You played an elemental. Blaze Color is online for next turn. You know, Smurda doesn't have the ability to gain the benefits of Stone Sentinel, so it would be a 7 mana 4/4. I like 4 mana 7/7s better.
It just seems better now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Important to note, Tolvir Stone Shaper is not an elemental itself. If you played an elemental the previous turn, it gains Divine Shield and Taunt. It's a 4 mana 3/5. But if you play Tolvir Stone Shaper on 4, you can't play Servant of Kalamos on 5 and get the activation, for instance.
Yeah, that's, I mean, thankfully with the yellow border, generally in the crackling showing activation effects, you know, it's a little harder to miss, but I know I've missed it at least once.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I was like talking to 3 people and I felt really dumb. But I didn't even need it. Like, it was just one of those situations where I just needed a 3/5 to push damage. But I still, like, my opponent didn't know it was a mistake.
Yeah.
But I knew it was a mistake. And the people around me knew it was a mistake.
And now everybody who's watching knows it was a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if you told people Rob Wing made a misplay, people are going to be like, what? No. They'll be like, oh, well, that just adds up. Okay, second Fire Plume Harbinger.
Looks really nice golden.
You know what? It's really pretty art. That's what I'll say nice things about Fire Plume Harbinger.
You know what? It's really pretty.
Yeah.
That's nice.
No,
You're finding positives, Rob. Think positives. I don't think it's a bad card. I really don't.
I don't know.
I think it's a fine inclusion in this deck. I don't know what you're getting rid of for it, because you're also playing 2 Mana Tide totems.
I don't think it's a bad card. What I'm saying is that if, in a world where I run Fire Plume Harbinger, I'm looking for so much more value. Like,
Yeah.
I'm probably actually just cutting out Eye of Blackpaw, which is ridiculous, because Eye of Blackpaw is amazing.
I mean,
But
yeah, there's a point where maybe...
if you're not drawing a lot of cards, you basically get one situation where you have the density of elemental cards in hand where it's useful to the point that I don't even know that I run 2. Like,
I don't think I would run 2.
yeah, 2 is sometimes an argument just when you really want to draw a card for consistency's sake. But that's not what I get out of Hearthstone.
Well, here you're getting another 3 mana worth of discounts.
Sure.
Malaysia choosing to play Aya this turn instead of the Blaze Caller, although the Blaze Caller could have killed Tark Reaper. If you got 5 direct damage at this point, you want to hit something that's going to hit you harder. So...
yeah, and look, you can play all of those elementals in one turn now. So especially in this situation, where you're not entirely sure what your opponent is running in terms of board sweep removal, I mean, that seems good. You yourself run Volcano, so maybe you think your opponent also runs Volcano.
yeah, you've seen one Lightning Storm already,
Yeah.
very early on. Ooh,
Wow,
okay then.
What is...
I believe I believe it's dabbing, Rob.
Ooh.
I think he just dabbed because he rolled the Wrath of Air Totem and
No.
wanted to celebrate
It's not me
because it
that's
was
wrong.
really good.
It's the kids. The kids are wrong.
Take it from a kid, Rob.
Okay. So would you say objectively, as someone in your early 20s, that dabbing is a quotation mark cool thing to do? Would you dab in front of your parents?
Oh God, no.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
My
do it?
mom might dab in front of me, but she's 50, so
At that point,
she can
it's
just do what she
I was
wants.
gonna say at that point it's adorable.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess if I wait another 30 years, maybe it'll be vintage.
Yeah, and you know, not to
Ooh. That's
saying
good
a
card.
positive thing about the dab there. I mean, that's a situation where if you're gonna dab, you roll the 25% chance
Yeah,
Wrath of Air Totem onto an empty totem board.
I mean,
and-
unless you're disguised toast waiting for your opponent to concede
Yeah.
and dabbing in preparation, I'd say this was an all right scenario.
okay, so we as a casting duo
I've decided that this is an acceptable dab.
right. So this is like walking out to the middle of the football field. We find, no penalty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. These are the kinds of things you have to discuss as a casting duo to find out where you arrive at.
I think this is an important issue. If you were, because you were using some terminology last week that was going over my head.
I watched the VODs and went over my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it wasn't just me. But more importantly, Gilgamesh has drawn Kalamos Primal Lord, which can deal 3 damage to Smurdo Kotik's entire board. And it looks like that's what's going to happen here.
I really want Gilgamesh to do the counter dab, but of course he didn't see
Yeah.
Kotick do it. So it would have just been a happy chance if they both did it. But yeah, it's going to clear up a lot of the board, although leaving that much board up against the Shaman generally feels pretty bad. Because you're going to flame totem. Flame tongue totem me, right?
This, my perception of this matchup just keeps going back and forth. Because
Well-
now Malaysia has, I would say, the higher quality of minions in hand. It's really close. Depends on how you see Blaze Caller versus Stone Sentinel. Smurdo Kotick still has Kalamos in deck, though.
Yeah, and Gilgamesh really did benefit there from drawing Kalamos precisely when he did. He was in a rough spot otherwise, but yeah, the upside for Malaysia, though, is you can actually just play all these minions all at once. So if you don't make the call that there's a Volcano in hand, which even then, Volcano damages, your own minions too. So
Yeah, it's a liability sometimes.
if he's got the board, you're basically saying, okay, let's roll the dice and see what happens.
Hot Spring Guardians in the late game.
I mean, against the right matchups, they can be advantageous. but
Yeah.
You're really looking for just, maybe another Servant of Kalamos,
Big stuff.
find another Kalamos Primal Lord.
I think we've actually seen both servants from Malaysia. I believe one grabbed one grabbed a fire elemental and then the other grabbed
Yep.
the igneous elemental.
Yeah, what's really left? I mean, now that you've seen Kalamos and your Servants of Kalamos came up, average result to kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw Aya, but Aya was the first Jade that was played, so 2 Jade Lightnings left maybe. I wonder if there's Jade Claws in this deck. I really do.
I was just actually going to bring that up. I think if you're running Aya Blackpaw, yeah, she's a good card in her own right, but if you cut Jade Claws, is it really even but at that point, the biggest Jade you're going to get is a 4/4, and Jade, or Aya Blackpaw herself is actually pretty easily removed. I don't know. That is a question for, the experts I'm going
The
to float
Shaman
around.
professionals.
I'm actually going to float that around DreamHack Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask the pros. They're all going to be there.
Yep. I'm going to record the answers and upload them to YouTube and forever doom them to history, whatever their opinions were, right or wrong.
Cool.
Yep.
Sweet.
And I ask you too.
Please don't.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
Nope. Don't want to be immortalized on the internet.
Well, then I'm in the wrong career path.
Yeah, right. I'll be showing my grandkids Rob Boss.
There's some things that you just cannot run away from, Rob.
It's true.
That's one of them.
All right, well, Smrto Kotick is at the point where, I mean, both of these players started with sizable hands.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of, grinded it down to the nitty-gritty here. And at this point, Smrto Kotick has got to be considering, like, okay, what are these last two cards? And, we know Gilgamesh is basically sandbagging a Flame Elemental to, activate other elementals later on.
Yeah, and if Smrto Kotick paid attention to that, he would know what one card in hand is.
Yeah, that's a fair point. He might just know. But if he doesn't, it's a situation where he doesn't want to overcommit. Because I think if you make that read, you probably feel pretty okay knowing that one of those cards is a Flame Elemental.
Yeah.
You don't know the other one, but is
But you know
really
what you've seen
punishing?
already. You've seen one Volcano. What's the likelihood that they have two? And you know what? Actually, I don't think we've seen any lightning storms come from Malaysia. Maybe that was
You're probably just running
an
plays.
option that was cut.
I mean, do you run like double Maelstrom, Portal, double Lightning Storm, double Volcano?
Oh,
That seems excessive.
no. We've only seen one Volcano for Gilgamesh thus far, though. Looks like there may still be 4 or 5 cards left in deck.
We used to joke about bringing your sleeping bag for Control Warrior Mirror, but
I loved the Control Warrior Mirror. Yeah, the first 15 turns didn't matter, but when you got at least Starseeker down and it all was a bit of a clown fiesta, it got fun. This just seems like a slow burn into kind of a fizzle of a finish.
I don't know if you necessarily needed a sleeping bag for this mirror, but it at least warranted consideration
a chair.
or like an overnight bag, at least potentially. Like maybe you're not
Change of
going
clothes.
camping, but
Hairbrush.
okay. We see more value trades on the board, and Blaze Caller continuing to get work done. 6/6, great stat line. Some of the best minions in the game. 6/6s. So Blaze Caller doing work. And Smrto Kotick continues to consider how much he wants to commit to the board. Unfortunately, because the elemental chain was broken, he doesn't get the added benefits of Blaze Caller or Stone Sentinel. And, as we've discussed before and other Hearthstone players have discussed, you don't really get a lot of value, when you're not actually chaining elementals. But Volcano comes out real pretty and clears up most of the board.
Yeah, it's a great animation.
Give out that Maelstrom Portal. Just do it.
Well, Smrto Kotick, I'm suspecting he will wait for a third elemental because he wants the activations on both Blaze Caller and Stone Sentinel. But if he doesn't get one next turn, he might just have to bite the bullet and play one. I feel like we've seen far too many Blaze Callers this game.
Yeah, this game's straight up blazing, gotta say. Yeah, just considering aiming that Blaze Caller face and going, it's kind of a situation where at this point you're waiting on a train that's never coming. If you're looking for more heavy hitters, this is probably the last of his big elementals. Maybe there's a fire elemental in here somewhere, but
It's a midnight train to Faceland.
that's a pretty good train. Not gonna lie. I mean, you have to know when to make a move. You just saw a Volcano. What are they? Again, this is such a weird territory, I think, for all these teams, the Elemental Shaman Mirror. But I think you can probably be pretty secure in the read that it's not double Volcano. Both sides agree to that much. We're like, all right, don't touch hair, don't touch the shirts, and no double Volcano.
Leave the face, it's the moneymaker. No double Volcanoes.
Yeah. I think that's pretty safe rules going into this.
I mean, we've seen one Hex, at the very least, from Smrto Kotick. It came out on the Eye of Blackpaw. No, it did not.
Well, this is just
Gilgamesh hexed Smrto's Aya.
Ooh, this is a disparaging turn.
Yeah, Kazakhstan had not drawn any of the Fireflies yet.
Yeah, and this is, when the elementals are being previewed, people were thinking, oh, well, they just look like bonkers. But, you got 2 good elementals sitting in the hand that are not going to do anything because you need to play Firefly first.
It's just a deck that suffers so heavily when you don't have consistent card draw. I mean, think about if Azure Drake were still in this deck. If you slot in 2 Azure Drakes...
It's too soon. I'm just happy Azure Drake's gone.
Man, it'd be so good. Whereas Malaysia has not had a single turn here now where they haven't played an Elemental. They've had activators consistently the entire game.
Yeah, we talked about Igneous Elemental as kind of an underwhelming thing to pick up off the Servant of Kalamos, but, you know, it does allow just a Flame Elemental a day keeps your Elementals at bay. Yeah, just keep going.
Cross-stitch that on a pillow, Rob. That was very nice.
Thank you. I'll be spinning up my own brand of greetings cards. So,
greetings, traveler.
Yeah, I was gonna say you just open it up and it's just a picture of a
Huffer. Keeps your elementals at bay.
No, it just says greetings, traveler, and you just open it up and it's just a picture of Huffer.
Maybe one of those like cards that like origami pops out at you. It's like 3D.
Like an origami fist just. Ow! I just took 4 damage.
Ow! Kazakhstan just took 6 damage. I think Malaysia was absolutely right here to start putting pressure.
Yep.
These teams have been trading back and forth. No damage had been done up until this point, and Malaysia knows that they're running out of threats. If they want to start pushing and potentially win this game, it had to be now.
Well, when you saw the volcano come out and reset the board, you were thinking, okay, well, they reset the board, so clearly if they have things they're going to play them now.
Yeah.
And then when things don't start getting played, you feel pretty good about like, okay, well, we're going to commit into the board pretty heavily. All right, Servant of Kalamos, probably not what you're going to play this turn, because I think you just got to start getting stuff on the board. So I like Blaze Call, yeah, especially with that Maelstrom portal. The health now for Kazakhstan, kind of a concern. Okay, so there's a Jade Claws.
Okay.
Jade Claws, Jade Lightning, aim, face, go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Jade Lightning is 5 here, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. Try to kill him in the following turn.
He hasn't played a second Jade Lightning, has he? I mean, it's hard to keep track at this point, honestly.
The Jade Lightning makes a 3/3, so no. I think the Aya is the only Jade that has been played so far for Gilgamesh.
And there's not many cards left. If you're running double Jade Lightning, I'm just going. What's the only thing that really stops you at this point is Kalamos comes out, heals for 12. But, I mean, again, you're
if
kind
it
of
heals for 12, then it can't deal 3 damage to your entire board. And you're getting Jades off of this Lightning and Claws as well.
Nope, Gilgamesh sees it differently. Yeah, I don't blame him for this either. Obviously, we have pretty good sight up here from the casting desk, so I definitely don't blame him for this route, but he's built a good board here, and it's going to push damage as well. So
this is it's more defensive, and at the same time, it's not. If that makes any sense.
No, I get what you're saying.
Because yes, you're removing minions, but you're also risking board clear. You've seen one Lightning Storm, you've seen Volcano. It's calculated risk. I think this is okay, and ultimately, I think it will accomplish the same goal for Malaysia.
Yeah, and you know, you have to qualify these decisions from the perspective of the players, who don't see the hands, and you know, you still see 3 cards. You've seen that they've been there for a while, so you're probably thinking like, okay, probably removal. You know, what else could it be? You saw the Firefly come out, so you're aware, okay, next turn, Elementals are back on. But
the Elementals are calling. And if you put them all in, Rob,
what to do?
You're going to be balling.
Wow. That could go in one of those greetings cards. I don't know what holiday that's for, if that's like you're sick. Like if you're feeling sick, or like it's like a...
I get well soon.
What is it, a Quinceañera? Whatever it is that... Yeah, that. Maybe that's where you put a greetings card.
It's a very specific greeting card. I don't know.
I was gonna say I don't think actually that would be like relevant.
I don't know if I'd invest in your Hearthstone greeting card company.
It's $1 million item.
Second thing from below.
Yeah, we have seen. I've seen some people running that. I think USA's Shaman was running Thing from Below. So Thing from Below is still just a really nutty card.
You can never really argue with a 0-mana 5/5.
Yeah, you just have to get there first, and maybe it's one of those situations where, because you're putting so much emphasis on the elemental chain, you're not really considering like, okay, I have to be hero powering every turn.
You're still going to be.
In prior metas, where Thing from Below was truly grotesque, which I guess looking at the art, it's always grotesque, but you know, you were often putting a lot of emphasis on actually just using the hero power.
Did you happen to watch the Streamer Showdown?
Did not, been busy.
There was one of the meme rounds was a picture of 1 mana 5/5 with taunt, and the comment that one of the competitors put on it was a worse thing from below. It was obviously it was for Questro. It was very funny.
Right. That's good. Like it. Okay, so Smirta Kotick has just enough mana to play everything in his hand. Gonna want to go ahead though and use the Servant of Kalamos first. See what he finds. Maybe there's something for 4 mana he wants to play aside from the Jade Lightning. But yeah, he really needs to clear this board. Obviously, with 5 health, he is staring down a lot. Is it even possible?
Servant of Kalamos can pick you up Tar Creeper.
Yeah.
That maybe prevents 5, then you're still dead. I don't know that this is possible for Kazakhstan.
Well, you got to start by looking. You know? Does rolling Spell Power Totem change the equation? So you roll that, you roll Spell Power, you hit the 5/5, you use Claws on the Stone Claw.
Nah, you're still... Well,
no, you survive
if you were
at that
to roll
point.
spell damage and hit Jade Lightning into Thing from below, yes, you're still alive. So maybe that would have been more favorable there for Smirta Kotick, but ultimately Malaysia, I think, picked the exact right moment to change their game plan, start hitting face, and it paid off for them.
Yeah. We see there that Gilgamesh absolutely ecstatic, and I can't really blame him. Like, that was only one game, but it felt like an 8-hour game.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, elementals, direct damage.
It was a marathon.
Trades. Yeah. So congratulations to them. We saw the spiffy M8 jersey there. So
very nice.
Really cool. Might have to get one myself. Really liked it. But yeah, that's going to be a point for Malaysia. So coming into this, the expectations are these are 2 teams of relative unknowns, with the exception of Naaman, at least on the Western world stage. Do you necessarily think either of these teams has the edge, or is it kind of like, well, let's just see what happens?
I would actually say that they're fairly evenly matched. Because, Naaman for Kazakhstan is the well-known player there. Chonger also for Malaysia has quite a few accolades.
Yeah.
So both of these teams have a clear competitive leader, and then we just don't know too much about the 3 players behind each of these leaders on these teams. So I would say they're fairly evenly matched from what we can tell, at least at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know if this factors in, but Chonger was originally on M8 Gaming, and then after the recent success he's had lately, he did leave the team, and he's playing with, 3 guys who are from M8 Gaming. And I'm sure there's no bad blood. I'm sure that's, you understand that's a business decision. Chonger probably just pursuing other opportunities, but, do wonder, is that potentially something that hurts the synergy of the team? Maybe there is a little bit of bad feelings there, but, have to see if that even becomes an issue. And there's just so many things I wish we had direct insight into, like the conversations for all of the teams with, like, okay, what do we play? What are the deck lists? So
I mean, that's
very interesting.
Unfortunate, considering, yes, it would be fantastic to have insight into these conversations that the teams are having and the communication that is going on in the game. Obviously, there's a language barrier significantly between 48 different countries. There's going to be many different languages, and I only speak like 2 sort of, and we haven't casted the German team yet. So
yeah, we'll get there eventually. But looking up on the screen now, we have Gippertox and Revenge CCS. Now, Revenge was the guy chilling out there with Gilgamesh in that same place, also rocking what I believe is the M8 jersey. So talking a little bit now about Gippertox, he, there isn't too much necessarily online about him, but, he is a streamer who is really popular in Kazakhstan, so country streamer. He doesn't necessarily have much tournament experience, but finished top 200 legend in February 2017. And Gippertox loves Astana City in Kazakhstan because of its beautiful sights. And if you're not familiar, Astana, the capital, Kazakhstan. So, and it's a city that, and I thought this was interesting, is kind of becoming increasingly modern in architecture. So there's more and more very interesting buildings kind of cropping up.
And then here we have Revenge CCS, obviously plays for the Malaysian Hearthstone team M8. Loves the fact that Malaysia is multicultural and wants to show the world how strong they are when it comes to Hearthstone. They've started doing that with the Malaysian Major, and they are just on the up and up from there. And his favorite food from Malaysia is the king of fruits, the durian. It's a divisive fruit, Rob.
I have never had the durian, nor have I heard it referred to as the king of fruits.
I have not either.
I always honestly thought, like, apples were the king of fruits. No, seriously, you like go to a hotel.
Pretty basic, Rob. I don't know.
I mean, you go to a hotel, you know, what are they there's like a basket
Apple
of apples.
and orange.
Right. Maybe figs if
banana.
you're a fancy person.
Figs.
I don't know what a durian is. Isn't that like a boss in Diablo?
Well, it is spiky, and I know that because I've played Donkey Kong.
Great. We're learning all kinds of things from video games. So
I think I've probably seen it on Chopped once on the Food Network.
Great.
But I'll take his word for it.
All right. Well, you seem convinced. I less so, but
How convinced are you, though, on this Druid versus Warrior matchup that we're about to see?
well, now that I'm seeing that it is Jade Druid, so this is actually pretty interesting to me because one of the reasons Control Warrior really wasn't being run in the previous meta is because Jade Druid just kind of like locked him out.
Yeah.
Because once it got late enough, the Warrior just ran out of ways to deal with the Jade Druid. And the Jade Druid was continuing just to make 8/8s, 9/9s, 10/10s. And the Warrior basically had Elise, old Elise, not the new hotness Elise, to basically like,
The
well,
old hotness.
make me some sweet legendaries and, let's hope they
Make
all...
me 4 sweet Lorewalker Chos and a Millhouse Mana Storm.
Yeah, pretty much. So I have not actually seen this matchup since set rotation and since the release of Journey to Ungoro. So my gut tells me that if the Druid gets into the ramp really early, gets into the card draw, has the nourishes, starts going infinite with the gadgets, and then you win. But it also feels like, I don't know, it's hard to say, right?
I think the Control Warrior has a much better shot now than it did
It definitely
pre-Ungoro,
does.
just because it puts on so much more pressure early on. You have Stonehill Defender into Bloodhoof Brave, into Alley Armorsmith, Curator. You have just a higher density of minions that you can actually attack with. And you still are playing that same amount of hard removal, so double execute, double shield slam, 2 brawls. I don't know, my gut is saying that yes, Jade Druid is still very strong in this case, but I think Warrior's got a hell of a shot.
Yeah, your gut's probably smarter than mine. Mine's just saying I'm hungry. But
Yeah, a little bit. I'm feeling that too.
my brain is thinking about the fact that what is one way to get around Die Insect, the hero power? It is to have minions that just have more than 8 health.
Yeah.
And
a good
Jade
point.
Druid can certainly get to there. And looking at what Gippertox has, Jade Blossom and Nourish are actually very vital pieces, I think, to just basically outpacing the Warrior. And the more I think about it, the more this makes me think maybe this is why we are starting to see more Jade Druid.
Because
in the
Quest
global
Warrior
game.
is so possible.
Because, yeah, Quest Warrior is so possible. It's popular, it's also pretty possible. I mean,
Popular.
I got a condition
was-
for you. Can you play taunts?
I can.
Can you play 7 taunts?
It's steep, but I think I can do it.
I'll give you a taunt that makes another taunt.
Okay.
I'll give you
Okay.
and that puts in your hand. I'll give you a taunt that puts a taunt in your deck.
All right, that's pretty good.
Okay, and then you know what? Once you play 7 taunts, I'm actually going to give you a 3-mana 4/2 weapon,
Okay, it's not bad.
and then I'm going to also give you the Ragnar's Hero Power.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so
I can
It's pretty
understand
possible.
why you would. I meant popular, Rob.
come on, you
It's been a
gotta
long day.
take the little victories where you can.
I got you. 1 point, Rob wins.
Yes, scoreboard.
No, I absolutely agree. I think they would make a lot of sense to see more Jade Druid because it is better against Warrior than Aggro Druid is, certainly. I think Ramp Druid's probably still okay.
Yeah, maybe when we actually sit down and look at this, maybe you just view Jade Druid as pretty much just there to deal with Quest Warrior. Like maybe that's the only reason you bring it because, you approach the Hearthstone Global Games format much, much differently than you would approach, for example, Open Cups during the Hearthstone Championship Tour, Conquest formats, or Last Hero Standings format. So, if you have to bring one of each, I think you bring the Druid, and then you basically look for a situation where you have the opportunity to play against a Warrior. And then that's when you pick the Druid, and since you have 2 classes, maybe if you don't get the Warrior, you say, okay, I'm not going to play Druid unless I feel like I'm getting like a favored matchup either way. And what would Jade Druid really be favored against? It's pretty much, and this is working theory, because I haven't seen this matchup
Freeze
yet.
Mage, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, Earth
With
and
the
Scales.
addition of Earth and Scales, you
Yep.
still run Feral Rage.
Yep.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, maybe if you just tech it against Freeze Mage and Quest Warrior, and you're like, this is the reason I bring it. Because, to be honest, as much as I like Aggro Druid, it's not really like the sort of deck that's very forgiving if things don't go the way they need to, right? You either get that explosive start with Innervate,
Or you probably lose.
Or you lose. So if you're going to have to bring Druid, which everybody does, maybe you just figure, okay, this is better than Ramp. Because at least I know at some point I'm going to beat out the Quest Warrior. I got more finality than you do.
That's a great point. I'm going to have to check the specific stats.
Let's hit the lab.
On this matchup.
Do some Mythbusters.
For my goggles and my lab coat.
Yeah.
Let's test this matchup.
Okay. I'm sold. I'm going to, for next week, well, you're going to be in DreamHack next week, but we're going to have to play this matchup just to test it.
Is that the Tortolan Shell Razor?
I think it's Shapeshifter, isn't it?
Shapeshifter.
Yeah. The Shell Razor, I want to say, is the Priest 2/6.
Nope, nope, you're right, you're right. Tortola,
2 points for Rob.
preserve us.
But who's keeping score?
I'm trying, Rob. Been playing a lot of Arena lately.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the names of all of these underrepresented cards because clearly we're seeing them more often than we thought we would.
It's hard. It is actually when a new set like this comes out and you're just casting in like week 1. I'll be honest, it is.
Shot in the dark, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's a 4-mana. Choose one.
Yeah.
5/3 with stealth or 3/5 with taunt.
Yeah, no, I don't really think in any of the other versions of Jade Druid I've seen since the release of Journey to Ungoro, I've seen the Tortolan Shapeshifter.
Neither have I.
Yeah. All right, so Swipe coming out, just gonna clear off the Bloodhoof, and
it's a high value removal card for the Druid, but
the option was
it's
there
just
to just
not going
nourish
to be.
too.
Yeah, it's just not going to be very good in this matchup.
I wonder why you feel like you have to deal with the Bloodhoof immediately. I mean, yeah, it's gonna dent one of your minions. And they go for 5 attacks.
I'll take your Tortolan Shapeshifter, or your Shapeshifter and my Shell Razor, and put it together, and it's just Shell Shifter.
Do you think this is how Reese's Cups happen? They're like, I got chocolate.
You got peanut butter.
Jam it.
We'll have to ask Ben Bro.
About Reese's?
Maybe he knows something about that too.
He's a pretty knowledgeable guy. He did introduce me to Korean barbecue. Not even kidding. The
one of
first
the
time I had
nicest
Korean
things
barbecue, he cooked it for me.
Aw.
It was very romantic.
Oh, was it?
Thanks, Ben.
Oh dear. Don't mind me, Rob.
Oof. Yeah, Gibbertox now. The Eye of Blackpaw is really. I mean, it's gonna make a 3/3, so it's not bad.
Golems are a girl's best friend.
But it doesn't deal with the Armor Smith.
Nothing in hand would deal with the Armor Smith right now, though. At least Eye of Blackpaw will clear it off in the following turn. It was just the strongest play.
Yeah, and to be honest, since your win condition is basically spiral the board out of control, you actually don't care that much about the armor that Ally Armorsmith is generating.
Yeah. I mean, if you, as Gippertox, run Revenge CCS out of cards, yes, they get Sulfuris, they get the hero power, but at that point, if you've got Gadgets in Auction, your Jade Idol, and you're just making giant golems, you win that game.
Now, here's a potential wrench in the cogs. Deathwing. Because Mulch is gone.
It is.
We've talked about this. This is suddenly a very real problem for Druid because in no meta, aside from the brief period where you saw Mill Druid, was Naturalize Run.
Yeah.
So Naturalize is pretty much, I would be surprised if it crops up here. But yeah, other than that, Druid really doesn't deal with Deathwing. Druid's answer is to have big enough Jade Golems to where if a Deathwing comes down, you make a Jade Golem and then it battles with Deathwing the next turn.
And there's also, you know, Ancient of War, Druid of the Claw. There's taunt minions that you can put out to stall the Deathwing, make sure it doesn't hit face.
Yeah.
I think if Deathwing comes down, Druid is likely still in an alright position.
It depends.
It's when Deathwing comes down and you have Sulfuris equipped that maybe things start to get a little bit sticky.
A little bit awesome if you're the warrior. Giant Dragon, Sulfuris.
Cool.
Yeah, go.
And Ragnaros, here's my Deathwing. They're loving life at that point.
Yeah, life's pretty good when you're the warrior at that point, but not so much for the Druid. Gippertox, still really just debating, I think, if he wants to go for that Ancient of War. Ancient of War, in this situation, just, to me, feels pretty bad. But at the same time, it is technically, in terms of mana utilization, the strongest play you have. And if you play it as early as possible, statistically speaking, you have the best chance of your opponent not having to execute. So,
the longer you wait, the more likely they are to have drawn it at that point.
Yeah.
And you know they're going to have 2 executes. They're going to have to draw them out at some point. You know, maybe better on an Ancient of War than large Jade Golems. It feels pretty bad either way. Especially now since Revenge CCS gets to draw cards with the Acolyte of Pain on the back of the Whirlwind.
You are no fun.
No fun.
Well, golems are a girl's best friend.
I've heard this. Actually, I really enjoy that particular playset, or yeah, that playset right there. It's one of my
Men have
favorites.
dogs, you know, as you have just adopted a new dog, and, you know, I get Jade Golems. So.
I feel like I win that one. 3 points for Rob.
Why am I still here? I am not winning tonight. Yawks are on in hand for Gippertox as well.
Now, I didn't know this. Is this just like the new thing you do in Jade Golem? Is that your panic button because Mulch is gone?
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, Druid has the benefit of not only just inherently having a lot of spells, but, you know, Wild Growth, when you play to 10 mana, makes a spell. So there's a good, you know, Raven Idol's gone. That used to be another way you kind of generate like 2 spells off of 1 card.
Yeah.
I made the Yogg-Saron better. But I definitely think that this is still, there's enough going on. The Yogg-Saron
I mean, if you
feels
just
good.
Jade Idol, shuffle 3 Jade Idols in deck,
Yeah, that's
creating
fair.
3 more spells. Yogg-Saron has just always been incredibly valuable in Druid because of the amount of spells that you play.
Completely agree. Tarlord is so large. I know Fen Creeper fits into the curve, but I actually just kind of like Tarlord there because you play down the Tarlord and you're like, good luck. Good luck ever getting by this. I mean, obviously Druid makes big minions. Yeah, I know I'm being a bit silly here, but I just always want to grab Tarlord. I'm like, you're a very large taunt.
You're a big dude that I wouldn't put in my deck normally,
Yeah.
but I'm okay that you're here. But in this case, I think Revenge CCS just wants to complete the quest as quickly as possible and try to apply pressure before Gippertox can build infinite golems. So, you know, maybe Revenge draws another 5 mana taunt minion next turn, can play that with Dirty Rat, finish the quest, get it online by the turn after.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty sound reasoning, all things considered. You definitely want to make sure you are launching 8 damage missiles before the Jade Golems get 2 out of hand. So, I do like that.
Because, you know, Jade Druid can build up to a 30-30 golem for 1 mana with Jade Idol.
Yeah.
But the Warrior can use 2 mana to deal 8 damage randomly. Who's going to get there first? It's going to be the Warrior.
Yeah, that is actually just fact. And that turtle just turned into a dinosaur.
Yeah, it's a shifter. See? There's the Direhorn hatchling off the top. You can play it with the Dirty Rat if you want to. Maybe you pull out Yogg-Saron.
Dirty Rat in general, at least in my mind, has always been kind of one of the stronger things against Jade Druid, because Jade Druid mostly just wants to get that battle cry effect, or they want to get the choose one effect. So I wouldn't mind just going for it, to be honest.
I can also see holding it for a turn you brawl.
You're just being contrary now. This is because I'm up 3-0.
I'm trying
isn't it?
to provide context for the lovely viewers. Yeah, if you play the rat this turn...
You called him lovely. This is clearly just like
I'm
peddling to
pandering,
them.
Rob.
Yeah,
Let me do my job. Actually, it's just better to... You play the rat next turn, you can still Sulfurous when you get it. Then you can brawl if you want to.
Maybe you're just right this time. I can point on the board for you. You probably
I mean,
have
I
a
was
bunch that we
wrong
just
initially
weren't,
then.
we weren't just keeping score earlier.
We
But
weren't keeping score for like the first 2 hours.
you made the mistake of giving me a point. I'm a pretty combative individual.
You're lucky your dog is cute.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
So cute. Vandal Staghelm lost some value with the rotation of Raven Idol. Still absolutely worth playing with Jade Idol and Feral Rage. I do think that a reason to play Feral Rage is if you want to play Fandral. If you want neither of those things, I think Earth and Scales is probably just better.
We were actually discussing it, I believe, last week in terms of which one you'd run.
Yeah.
Have to agree though, if you had the Fandral in your deck, it just makes sense to me to keep Feral Rage.
I honestly
The
haven't
versatility.
I haven't looked at the 30-card list. I don't know if you have room for both.
Yeah, we talked about the cards you actually lose out on, so I'm not entirely sure
Oh,
what the
double
full
dirty
list
rat
looks like.
brawl is gross.
It's pretty gross.
Pitbull's Fandral and Yogg.
Quest completed. Get your green helm from the NPC.
We have received the Hand of Ragnaros.
Yeah, legendary. You know, if I think about now when I'm playing WoW trying to get a legendary, you don't play WoW, but it actually takes a lot of quests to get a legendary.
I've never played WoW. I played a lot of Diablo, so I know what it's like to grind and try to get those
Oh my goodness.
the weapon sets that you want. But no, I've never raided.
I just want to point out that in vanilla WoW, I grinded like 30 Blood of Heroes, 15 Freight Abomination Stitchings, a Chromatic Stale, I think. This took me like 45 days to make an epic. And Diablo's a little... No, seriously, like 45 days to make an epic breastplate. That's... Yeah. No, vanilla WoW that's some grinding.
All right, well, ultimately, Malaysia decides they want to get as much value out of the Ragnaros hero power as possible. So they forego second rat and brawl, and instead just put Sulfurous online this turn. And they do end up getting rid of the Jade Golem on board, so it was a nice hit for them. I think Fandral would have been a bigger target, but take what you can get.
Realistically, Gippertox is in a pretty good spot, too, that the Dirty Rat did not pull Yoggzer on. Because that, frankly, would have been pretty disastrous. And now, you know, we're getting to that point where if Jade Golems get much bigger, this starts to really turn around for the Druid. And you're probably going to see a Brawl come out here. I would love to see the Dirty Rat as well. Even if I didn't know the Ogtron was there, I think I'm still going for it. Just because, again, future Jade Golems are starting to reach that 8/8 threshold. But it's going to... I really want to see Dirty Rat Brawl here and start going from there, just really abusing the value you're going to get from that hero power. Let's see. Other lines, potentially... Sleep with the Fishes does get rid of Fandral, but that's all you're getting. You could swing into the Jade Behemoth.
You're kind of in the position now where you need to remove every golem that your opponent plays because they're all going to be huge. So Yogg gets pulled from Dirty Rat. Malaysia pretty happy about that one. And Kazakhstan left with just an Innervate in hand. Blood Mage will cycle, but...
Gippertox continuing to wear the one expression he's worn the entire game. All right, you gotta keep
he's
Fandral.
consistent.
You gotta keep Fandral, but yeah, Fandral dies.
And this is where
Things
Die
get really
Insect
hairy.
is at its strongest, when there is
Oh, okay.
very little on board.
Okay. We have
Where
an
shall
8/8 and a 4/6. Might have liked to see that in cat mode, because I think you got to start going. But the 4/6 line, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you play the 4/4 in cat mode, it gets killed by Sulfurous, then the hero power is
But he has to swing
automatically a
into it.
50-50 for
Yeah. Okay. No.
the
that's fair.
8/8.
A good point.
Yeah, I'm just rolling with Deathwing here.
Okay. Now you know, Corey, you got the dream you were talking about earlier. You're just, you know, Sulfurous in one hand, Ragnaros hero power in the other, Deathwing in the middle, hit people.
Well, but here's also Druid of the Claw.
The Druid's like, please don't put me in there. I
Please
really,
don't. Please don't
I
play me.
really don't want this.
I don't want to be played.
No.
But if Gippertox can pick up Gadgets and Auctioneer, he did shuffle 3 copies of Jade Idol into the deck with Fandral.
We're on the Don't Stop Believing plan at this point. Like, Journey's just playing in the background. I mean, really, just being that Druid of the Claw is awful. It just didn't matter how
You're
it
dying
happened.
by fire, or you're dying by Fiery Dragon.
Okay, well, that is a 9/9 Jade Druid. Yeah, I think the more we kind of look at how this matchup actually goes, this reminds me a lot of Freeze Mage versus Quest Warrior, because the Quest Warrior's condition to get to its late game is just draw a lot of the cards that are just inherently in its deck. That's a taunt.
50-50 for lethal. All right, they don't get it, but they can clean it up with Shield Slam. I gotta put Deathwing in my Quest Warriors.
Definitely seems like it's doing work. We've seen it now 2 times tonight. Okay, there's a Wrath. You can still get...
Second Ancient War.
Yeah, just aim it. It doesn't matter there. Ooh,
Where's
old-
Straw? in the deck.
This is the equivalent of rolling Snake Eyes. You just see the double innervates looking up at you late game. That's not what you want. They absolutely have 0 value. You do not draw a card. Do not collect cards. Just go directly to the concede button.
Well, that's unfortunately the position that Jade Druid is in now if it runs out of resources. If you don't, yes, the ideal is Gadgets and Auctioneer, cycle Jade Idols, build a huge board. And yes, that would have won them the game against the Warrior. But unfortunately, Deathwing came down. There was no reload for the Druid. And at that point, Sulfuras just ended the game within 3 turns.
You had to go a lot faster at that point if you were going to hope to kind of beat out the Quest Warrior. Because again, so many of the cards in the Quest Warrior's deck just say taunt on them. And that's all they need to say. The Druid needs to find some ramp. They need to find some cycle. They need to find the cards that actually activate the Druid or the Jade Golems. So yeah, I'd be curious to really see like a large sample size of that matchup because I feel like the Jade Druid could actually just do work there.
It wasn't even like, it was a pretty reasonable start for the Jade Druid. They had Jade Blossom, and the Quest Warrior's start wasn't all that great. But ultimately, it came down to who was stronger in the late game, and Sulfuras plus Deathwing won out in this case. Second win on the board for Malaysia. But now, the heavy hitters are coming out. It's going to be Naaman versus Chonger. Naaman on the Rogue, and Chonger on the Mage.
I really like this. They're both in that third player spot. They're saying there's no chance I do not play this week. You know, I'm going to make sure that if the situation, you know, comes to it, I either close it out or I keep my team's dreams alive. And, you know, we talked about Chonger, you know, just recently having competitive success in the Hearthstone Championship Tour, the Asia Pacific playoffs. But I want to talk about Naaman for just a little more. Like, this isn't just a guy who's, you know, he's good at Hearthstone. There's a lot of guys we say they're good at Hearthstone. This guy has over $57,000 in prize winnings. He is someone who kind of had a bit of a redemption story, came back, battled, won a Europe Championship, got to the Hearthstone World Championship. This is, I would say, in terms of big names, this is one of the biggest in Europe. Absolutely
is. And certainly Virtus Pro is one of the biggest teams in Europe now, and Naaman as a member. And here you can see he won the 2016 HCT Europe Championship. So that was the start of his redemption story, and perhaps the Hearthstone Global Games could be a continuation.
Right, he's currently playing, as you mentioned, on Virtus Pro, and I think even though these are not his teammates for this, I think he can still, obviously their loyalties are going to be a little bit divided by the global games, but I like to think you can probably still bounce ideas off those guys, and the friendship, you know, they played through Trinity Series together. They're, you know, they've told me just in the past they're friends anyway.
It's a friendly fight.
Right, so I'm excited. This is kind of what I waited for. Naaman is the only person in either of these matches that I could actually sit down and kind of talk to for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I asked him, stark reality of the situation, you are not coming into this group as one of the people, you know, one of the teams people are excited to see. You're not necessarily touted as like, we're definitely getting out of this group and going to stage 2. And, you know, he leveled. He was like, well, you know what, gonna be honest, I think the expectations for us are pretty low. I feel like we can surprise people. He also said he thinks Malaysia can surprise people. So, you know, he's really on the line that if you're good, it doesn't really matter, you know, the big names on your team. It doesn't matter the competitive experience. You know, maybe you still just make it through and you surprise people.
I think that's absolutely what a lot of these teams that we're seeing, especially on our broadcasts, because we have a lot of the South American and Asia Pacific teams. We're seeing a lot of lesser-known teams that really want this chance to break out. And I think that, you know, Naaman reflected that very strongly. But here we have Quest Rogue for Naaman and Chonger on what looks to be a Freeze Mage. Quest Rogue is a big part of the reason that Freeze Mage has become so popular.
Yeah, it's you wouldn't necessarily think it because if you know how Quest Rogue operates, you think, well, don't they just go really fast and then the Freeze Mage needs time? But if the Quest Rogue doesn't just go completely off, get that like turn 4, turn 5 nut start where they prep out the Crystal Core on like I said 4 or 5 and they just go from there, you can slow the game down enough to where as the Freeze Mage, you collect your damage, you get an Alexstrasza, you Pyroblast, you Fireball, you just go. There's also, and this is something that I think is relatively new to Freeze Mage right now, in the beginning of the game, if you get that mulligan you want, you're getting Arcanologist, you're getting, you know, even Novice Engineer, you're getting smaller minions that can battle for board early, and you basically say to the Quest Rogue, you're like, okay, you need to actually get to your win condition soon, or you're going to give me enough time, you're going to give me the flexibility through Primordial Glyph to find what I need. I can just get additional freezes and, yeah, Ice Block. Frankly, it's just a big deal.
And the Rogue has absolutely no heal, meaning that every point of burn will ultimately count towards that 30 health death of the Quest Rogue. And here we can see it's not the best start for the Quest Rogue. Yeah, they've got some early game minions. Preparation will come in very handy if you want to prep out the Crystal Core earlier than you would normally be able to play it. But Eviscerate is a card that you're actually seeing taken out of a lot of Quest Rogues, along with Backstab. They want more space for bounces, and they want more space for just cheap minions.
Yeah, I want to point out when I was talking to Naaman prior to this, he did have one other quote, which this was purely him joking, but I asked him immediately, you know, what did he think of the rest of his team? And he jokingly, like chuckling, said it, you know, being honest, I'd rather be on a team with me and 3 beautiful ladies, which obviously a complete joke, but now when you look at the rest of the Kazakhstan team, you know, down 0-2, and it's on Naaman to start picking up the pieces and turn it around, you kind of just look at Naaman on there, he's just thinking like, man, this could have been
got a lot of work to do.
This could have been different.
Well, he can still bring this back.
Yeah, plenty of
and maybe, you know what, if his team does well, him and his 3 teammates end up with some pretty ladies who saw them play.
Naaman is actually married to one. He has a very lovely wife.
That is true.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah, so fortune, fame, and
He's already
potentially
got the pretty
girlfriends.
Girlfriends.
At the Hearthstone Global Games.
Jonger picked up Cabal's Tome off the Primordial Glyph. When it's 3 mana, it is really, really good. It's 5 mana, it's pretty good too.
It depends what you get. When you get the old 3 Shatter.
That's not good. In this case, you didn't want Molten Reflection though, so Cabal's Tome was likely just going to be the best choice.
It's actually an interesting point why people have really started transitioning away from like Time Warp Mage to Freeze Mage. And Cabal's Tome is actually kind of one of those interesting conversation points, because when you're playing the Time Warp Mage, a lot of times your hand is just stuck with combo pieces.
Yeah.
It's stuck with things you need to have, but you can't play early. And Cabal's Tome is one of those big pieces where, again, you know, unless you have 7, you can have 8 cards in hand and then play it, then you go to 10. You probably have to be able to play something because most of the cards in your deck are fairly integral. Cabal's Tome, obviously, you got off the Primordial Glyph, so it's, you know, not necessarily a bad thing to see here. But yeah, that is just one of the reasons why people have started going back to Freeze Mage. Obviously, there's also way less chance to it because, you know every card in your deck except the 2 Primordial Glyphs.
Yeah, and best case scenario, Malaysia gets some additional freezes off of the Cabal's Tome. Another ice block would be fantastic. So there's a lot of potential from this take. Obviously, it could go horribly wrong, but we'll have to wait and see. And importantly, Naaman picks up Youthful Brewmaster for the Swashbuckler along with the Gadgets and Ferryman. So going to need 1 more bounce on this Swashbuckler, but with the density of options for this in deck, it's likely that he will pick one up and be able to finish this quest relatively soon.
He does have the prep, so if he were to pick up a Shadow Step next turn, you know, he could look at getting the quest done. He also would be able to do it with a second Gadgets and Ferryman or Youthful Brewmaster because of the coin. So thus far, Naaman in an okay spot, but yeah, giving this Freeze Mage time, well, you know, you just say the name of a card and it just appears. Use Shadow Step.
Okay, so you can Swashbuckler, Brewmaster.
You can do it. You can prep it out.
Swashbuckler.
Yeah. And then you prep it out. Ooh, and then Arcane Intellect too.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, because you can coin prep out the core. That's pretty good.
I like it. Just get on the board, have 3 minions there. Just start going. You've got Stone Tusk Boar in hand.
Or wait, no, because you Brewmaster the Burglar, then you have to play it for 1 mana. Then you'd have to Shadow Step.
Oh, yeah.
You won't have the mana to
We
prep
were so
out.
close to sounding smart there.
You will not have the mana to coin prep this turn.
Okay.
Because you do actually have to pay the 1 mana for the Burglar when you brew it back.
Math. Continues to assail me.
As it does all of us. If only there was a you have lethal notification that popped up.
I thought you were going to say, if only there was some class somewhere that would teach you math. That would just make
I
you
don't know
better.
that one of those
Yeah, probably impractical.
exists.
I mean, when are you going to ever use Crystal Core math in everyday life?
I played 5 games of this deck. I won 4 of them, and then I stopped.
What, do you have a Rogue Quest or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play rogue cards. Yeah.
I'm really enjoying the Miracle Rogue version.
That's really nice.
The new one is a lot of fun with Hallucination.
I'm glad
the
that
Razor
Sherazin
Petals.
is seeing
Yep.
play.
Sherazin such a nutty card. It's, from a design perspective,
Yeah.
it's just frankly, I would have to say my favorite from the set. I was actually, talking to Mike today, just in passing the other day in the Blizzard Cafe, and was telling him it's just such a fun card.
Well, Malaysia knows that Swashbuckler is coming down for the 4th time next turn.
Yeah, so this is an interesting point where you realize that the way this is going to be played out, the Swashbuckler is going to be free too. So Crystal Core, regardless of having preparation, is definitely coming online. So at this point, I think the plan pretty much is just clear up the board.
Yeah.
You just need to get these, future 5/5s out of your life now while you can. And then you're doing okay in terms of having 2 ice blocks. You have a Blizzard, which isn't going to kill the minions, but it can slow them down. The problem, of course, is that the bounce effects, especially if a charged minion is frozen, you just bounce it back and you just send it to the face again.
Some actually very useful hiccups from the Swashbuckler. Mana Bind, Steam Surger, Arcane Intellect.
So Steam Surger, you have to play an elemental beforehand to get the Flame Geyser. So not really necessarily super impactful because he doesn't have any elementals in hand. But,
There's
it's another
likely
minion.
Firefly and Igneous Elemental in deck, so maybe.
It might be.
I don't know that it'll come to that point. I think that would be
I'm curious
strangely
what
long.
It really does feel like, most of this deck has been solved, but there's still like 2 to 4
Yeah, there's
cards,
a couple cards.
that kind of rotate in based on what you're expecting. The Bilefin, Tidehunter, Glacial Shard, more indicative of you're expecting aggro.
I'm very partial to the Glacial Shard. I think it's really, really good in this deck. At least that's the list that I was running. I think maybe I just ran into people playing Glacial Shard too much, and it was a pain in the butt.
I wonder.
All right, well, that Steam Surge got a very slight upgrade.
Very slight.
5/5 now.
+1 health.
Yeah. Good
Not
job,
bad.
buddy. You worked out. So when you go to the gym, you get that +1 health.
Did
for a
leg day, +1 health.
Yeah.
Malaysia has a lot of options here, and none of them are looking too fantastic.
I mean, to break it down, what Chonger has to do here is, of course, survive. But more than just survive, because I think it's easy when you play this deck to get into a mode where you're thinking, I'm just looking to survive.
Yeah.
You have to find the line that helps you win, and usually that's going to start with Alexstrasza.
Oh dear.
Well, I mean, you're getting Cabal Stones, so you're getting spells as a rogue. What is Cabal Stone's exact text? Is it mage
Put
spells?
3 random mage
Okay,
spells in
yep.
hand.
All right, so Vaporize here actually surprisingly useful. This is a secret that doesn't see a lot of play generally because something small will activate it. But yeah, Vaporize looking pretty toasty there. But getting back to what I was saying, Chonger has to actually find the line that allows him to win, which is going to require him to do the damage, from 30 health or from 15 again if he finds the Alexstrasza. The Archmage Antonidas is there, but the problem is that has to be done over a few different turns.
It's just a lot of very heavy options in hand for Malaysia.
Those are basically 3 useless spells. Maybe Frost Nova and Cone of Cold find value, but what are you looking to hold back that was going to hit you in the face or interact
I mean,
with your
you
board?
were hoping for burn.
Yeah.
Just
Or that
Fireball,
the game,
Pyroblast, Frostbolt.
or the game bugged out and just gave you 3 1-mana minions.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah.
1 mana, 1/1s. Give me Wisps. I'll pay 5 mana for 3 Wisps here.
2017, somebody said, "Give me wisps." Oof. Strange times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's actually kind of important that these cards are clogging up Naaman's hand. He's got Cryomancer, 3 useless spells, and a Steam Surger.
Yeah, Naaman probably would have been okay with getting some secrets there too, because at least it reduces the cost of Cryomancer.
Yeah, at least
Yeah.
it's something that maybe your opponent interacts with. Maybe Counterspell. Maybe another Mana Bind.
Nope, no such luck.
I mean, Chonger has 3 Ice Blocks,
What to do?
2 Frost Novas in deck, Blizzard in hand.
To that point, so while you're like, okay, Crystal Core's online, that means Rogue wins, right? It actually
Not
really
necessarily.
doesn't. 3 ice blocks, freezes. Naaman basically has to actually kill Chonger just multiple times.
Yeah.
And He's not actually pushing much damage because, to your point, his hand is kind of glutted up with stuff that isn't at all useful to him.
He would much rather at this point have just those cheap minions. Cold Light Oracle is a nice pickup, but he needs to empty his hand.
That's sad, minor point, because this is usually not relevant. You would, I believe, mill Chonger one card.
3, 6, 8, 9, 10. Yes, you would.
Yeah. Maybe it's relevant. What you'd want to see if the card is milled is you'd want to see Alexstrasza. You would want to see some freeze effects, maybe an ice block. That block is going to get popped.
I mean, Naaman essentially, yes, has to kill Chonger 3 times, but he can do it over the next 3 turns, which means
And-
Chonger needs to play ice block every turn along with something else.
Yeah, that's a good point. And realistically, if you play Alexstrasza, you're not addressing the board.
Yeah, you're just dead if you play Alex on any turn.
Yeah, you can't even Blizzard here. You ice block into question marks.
I mean, maybe you do have to Blizzard. Maybe you just hope that they don't have any
charge.
charges in hand.
Yeah.
You've seen Boar. South Sea Deckhand would kill you.
You've seen both Eviscerate, so that's something.
Yeah, but there's also 3... Okay, well, 3 random mage spells from Cabalist's Tome, and then 2 other random mage cards that you don't know what they are.
Naaman, is slight aside here, has like one of the best poker faces in all of
He really
Hearthstone.
does.
Yeah.
You never know what he's thinking.
He's a really funny, charismatic guy too when you talk to him, but he just stone-faced.
Not super
Chonger-
important when you're in a different country from your opponent, but if you're right in front of him, you don't want to give anything away.
Yeah. Still have nightmares about the gazes Pavel was giving people in the Bahamas. All right, so you're accepting with this line of play that the block is going to get popped. You're just, again, trying to get rid of the minions. That's about the best you can do.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Chonger's been on the attrition plan this whole game, liberally using his removal to kill minions.
So many options.
I'm just going to draw some cards.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, too. I'm always so timid to say that there's no way that Freeze Mage wins, because I've just seen Freeze Mage do some crazy things. But even with 3 ice blocks here,
I mean, with Naaman at 30 health, I would far from consider myself an expert, but as someone who's been playing this deck like a decent bit recently, this is about the time I would phone somebody who's way better than me and be like, hey, do you see a lethal here?
hey Amnesiac, is there any way I don't die? I used both Fireballs and Frostbolt and Cabalist's Tome.
No, you're just done. Yeah, I mean, you Blizzard, Ice Block, hope block doesn't get popped here, and then you... Yeah, I don't really know what you do.
I mean,
from
you
there.
can Blizzard Doomsayer, hope your opponent doesn't have
I wonder.
1 damage direct from hand. Which, to be fair, Naaman doesn't. Like, you have to try and clear the board, and eventually, maybe you can Alexstrasza yourself after you've run them out of minions.
If you're making the read on what's in Naaman's hand,
I wonder.
you realize he played a Cabalist's Tome and he hasn't played any of those spells.
Yeah,
You realize he played Swashbuckler 4 times.
and 2 of those cards you haven't seen.
Yep. So you just make the read there. Like, there's probably... Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's even safe to make that read that there's no more damage in there. Because Naaman hasn't had a need to play more damage. He played the Novice Engineer. You're probably thinking just a cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Arcanologist brings the Ice Barrier, and then you Ice Block, but at that point, you
You get popped through the
you
barrier.
you get popped, so...
So,
Interesting choice to play the barrier, because what are you actually accomplishing?
I mean, you could have foregone Barrier Arcanologist, played Blizzard instead.
Yeah, every conceivable universe where your block gets popped, like, nothing is actually getting accomplished this turn.
Because at some point, you need to have an ice block up, clear your opponent's board, they pop you, you Alexstrasza defensively,
Yep.
and then they need to have nothing left.
Yeah, Chonger may just have necessarily kind of overlooked that, but to be fair,
I can't blame him for playing really defensively. I think.
what of his options were really?
I mean, they
none
were
of his
all
options
bad.
are stellar. Yeah, they're not stellar options. They're just
The fact that Naaman hasn't drawn lethal or a method of damage from hand at this point is kind of insane.
well, I mean, he played both eviscerates,
Yeah, but
but you're talking about like
South Sea
another
deckhand.
South Sea deckhand or Stone Tusk War.
oh my gosh, a 5-mana 5/5
Fair.
for
Seems fair.
once.
Yeah. Well, you've seen 3 ice blocks now. Naaman's like, you got any more? Got any more ice blocks I can pop?
I mean, Blizzard Doomsayer, if they don't have a charge.
Okay, you know what? This actually... No, I guess it doesn't matter. Thought I saw something.
Do you see a line, Rob? Because I don't.
Well, I was thinking that the reason you play the barrier is because the way the block gets popped left you with leftover armor.
Yeah,
So maybe that just... He felt that was more valuable.
it's possible.
Took up to 5 health, essentially.
Because if Naaman is not able to kill him this turn, Chonger top decks Alexstrasza,
I
heals defensively, still has 1 Blizzard, 2 Frost Novas left. I mean, maybe at that point you can hit face for 8 and kill him. I guess there are ways.
Naaman's about to draw just a bunch of cards and shout, where are my chargers?
Still none of these finish the game.
This time for sure.
Oh my goodness. There are deckhands in this deck, right? I'm not crazy.
Yeah, let's just go for it. We'll win through fatigue. We'll just get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually. I'm not positive how many cards are left in each player's deck.
All right, this is just reaching like points of comedy.
my hand is too full.
Okay, maybe I'm horribly wrong. I mean, he is playing double backstab, double eviscerate. Maybe I just find it so hard to believe that you cut deckhand.
By the end of that turn, Naaman's like, what do I actually want to do now? He had like 12 seconds to try to figure out with that hand what was relevant to what he needed. But if you're Chonger, you're like, well, he doesn't have a charge minion.
Yeah,
You know
I think
definitively.
I think that's safe to assume.
That's actually just the truth.
So many options. So many bad options. What do you really even do here? That's a good start.
Okay, you got Alex Strasser.
Okay, all right. Rob, I'm seeing the lines.
Yeah,
Are you seeing the lines?
I'm seeing
Rob?
the lines. Okay, so
This is why
you know
I
he's out
never
of
ever
eviscerates.
say that Freeze Mage can't win. Because
know-
for some reason they always find a way.
This is just reaching like surreal points for me.
Wait, okay, deckhand, youthful brewmaster, that's 10. 2, 3, 4.
Vanish?
You
No,
can't
no, you
vanish
can't,
and play it
'cause- yeah.
again.
Mimic Pod.
This is just silly.
Mimic Pod into
Your second deckhand.
second
third
board.
deckhand by-
Second board. Just gonna vanish the Doomsayer back.
I wonder. I'm almost out of cards. My hand is too full.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
Choose soon.
All right, so Naaman single-handedly staves off elimination for Kazakhstan. He's just talking to his team. He's like, I did it. Why couldn't you guys? Come on.
I mean, having both South Sea deckhands in your bottom 5 cards, it was a little close for comfort, I'm sure. But it is potentially the start of a comeback.
Naaman doesn't even look relieved. He just looks more annoyed.
He looks frustrated.
He's like, how many Cold Light Oracles did we play that game?
Played 3 Cold Light Oracles. South Sea deckhands were in the bottom 5.
This is Naaman's happy face.
He does look relieved. He looks relieved. That might be a smile.
He's probably just thinking the probability. He's like, what were the odds?
It's like 1 in 30. Oh.
No, but that is going to put Kazakhstan on the board. So that's what really matters here is we have a series. It is now 2-1. Is in fact a series no longer, frankly, just kind of a beatdown.
Yes.
So.
Thankfully, Kazakhstan needed that win to stay in this match, and Naaman, unfortunately, cannot play the next game. He has to let one of his other teammates do it. I don't know, man.
Well, obviously, you know, in casting, we like to kind of have these narratives, and they're fun.
Yes.
But it's worth noting that these players are all working together on the same team. So I doubt there's anything like Naaman just saying, look, one of you guys has to win.
Naaman is not bringing down the ban hammer on his teammates. These are all very competitive players. Naaman is just the name that we know best.
The named man.
Yes.
Naaman.
But Hallmark certainly has his own achievements as well, and is more than capable of picking up a win here with the Paladin.
Agreed. We've seen Hallmark actually before on the Hearthstone Championship Tour. I want to say it was a while ago, but it was 2016 Winter Preliminaries. I want to say we actually saw him squaring off against Nyria. So this was a long time ago. Memory's a bit fuzzy, but I do believe he won. So if you can beat someone of Nyria's quality, you know, you're clearly pretty good. So
Absolutely.
Hallmark definitely seems like the person you would want in this spot, if not Naaman.
Yeah, it seems like Hallmark has the second most competitive experience on Kazakhstan's side, other than Naaman, of course. And Naaman is the ace. So if Hallmark can pick up a win here, it does go back down to Naaman for game number 5. But first, it is going to be Hallmark and the Paladin versus Lala Song on the Druid deck.
So Lala Song, when we were doing research, is one of my favorite guys. He actually used to play chess competitively, and
Really?
eventually got into Hearthstone because compared to chess, he felt like when he lost in Hearthstone, he could blame chance.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I think that's actually a lot of the reason that people from Hearthstone go to chess, but I suppose it works in the reverse as well.
Yeah, but taking a look at these players, Hallmark was the second highest HCT point earner for 2016 with 42 points earned. That's, you know, pretty impressive. Hallmark competed at every HCT Europe preliminary in 2016 and currently has 18 HCT points for the spring 2017 season. And really the real fact we want to get to, the TJ food fact.
Give it to me.
Hallmark's favorite dish from Kazakhstan is called lagman, which is a type of beef noodle soup. It's probably not pronounced like that, but I saw lagman, had to go.
Fair enough. With Lala Song, a lot of minor and Open Cup experience, but still looking for the breakout major tournament performance. Like you said, competed for the Malaysian national team in chess, and his favorite Malaysian dish is called nasi lemak, which is a rice dish cooked in coconut milk.
That actually sounds really delicious.
It does.
Starbucks just came out with the coconut cold brew thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to the unicorn frappuccino.
No,
I thought we were going to be
no,
on
no,
a
no,
completely different... Okay,
It's
we
got
were on
like
a different
79
wavelength.
grams of sugar. Do you know how many donuts that is?
It's supposed to taste like a Sour Patch Kid. Why would you want your milk-based product? It doesn't even have caffeine in it.
I mean, I want to taste it.
It does
It's just,
nothing for
you. Know,
you.
Going to
It's
Iceland in a couple
beautiful.
weeks. Going to a Blue Lagoon. It's got to be like bathing suit season. So it's kind of one of those things where I kind of got to work on the old dad bod here.
The coconut
So,
cold brew is
stay away.
also really good.
It is really good. Yeah, so, you know, one of the most fun things about the Hearthstone Global Games tournament thus far for me has been learning about the different foods, honestly. The Blizzard cafeteria actually has a global section where they serve food from other cultures. And, yeah, like I had Thai chili chicken, or Thai lime chili chicken.
Sounds delicious.
And, yeah, it's been really good trying out different foods and, you know, some of these places we're actually casting the matches for. So all part of learning about the world.
Yes, of course, because we are a geography lesson buried inside of a Hearthstone tournament with 48 countries represented, so lots of diversity
countries.
here.
Yeah. So we see here, this is very clearly Aggro Druid. But Cora, in case I didn't know why this was Aggro Druid, why is this Aggro Druid?
So, Aggro Token Druid is, I would say, the most popular variant of Druid right now, plays lots of early game minions, and then of course the common buff choices, as well as a little bit of later game, not too much to be of note. However, here we can see Bluegill Warrior, meaning that the Finja package is likely in here. And the Paladin, however, is looking to be more of a control Paladin. You see Sunkeeper Tarim, the Curator. I'm also expecting Ragnaros Lightlord, Tyrion Fordring, Primordial Drake we saw in the Mulligan. This is going to be a pretty heavy deck.
That is a great synopsis. Looking down at Malaysia's hand, Lalasong just got exactly what he needed. Oh my goodness, not like this.
It's a good hand. Of course, you want to innervate out your early game minions, buff them up with Mark of the Lotus, and then Savage Roar is going to be your big damage finisher. Also, Living Mana, we've been seeing quite a bit of play from. It is fantastic and super fun to play with. So the innervate, however, is really the big factor here. It's going to allow Malaysia to flood the board very quickly.
Paladin obviously has the ability to deal with boards. I would argue one of the best in the game, right? Equality, Consecration, superpower. But if you just start jamming all this pressure way before that turn comes online, yeah, True Silver, great removal, but like, hey, you don't get to play True Silver because I have just flooded the board with these minions. Ooh, and the greetings from Lalasong. We see Hallmark kind of making the little bit of the jaded, bitter smile, like, ooh.
Can you blame him?
No, this is rough life.
Reporting for duty.
Okay, Hallmark saying, gotta have it.
Silverhand Recruit, can you pull me out of this hole?
Silverhand Recruit's like, I actually have a thing I gotta
Reporting for duty, I forgot. I have to take my mother to bingo.
Yep, sorry, busy tonight. You know, would love to help, honestly, but full night.
I mean, if Hallmark is able to remove this board, Lalasong doesn't have anything until turn 5. But it is the best turn 5 in his deck. We do see Gentle Megasaur come into hand for Hallmark, so that is going to indicate that this is the Murloc variant, meaning that there might be less late game than I was.
All right, Lalasong was not looking for patches. If you were wondering what he was making the prayer hands for, it was not for Patches the Pirate. He was looking for Power of the Wild, Mark of the Lotus,
Savage Roar.
Now, it's worth noting that, to your point, if the board gets cleared, obviously Lalasong loses a lot of steam, but having Finja is actually a really solid backup plan, because Finja, once down, if it does activate, just puts out so much pressure. It's really pretty brutal. You summon, essentially what you're looking for is a War Leader Bluegill combo.
Yeah.
And you just go from there. If you have the Murlocs in hand to complement it, you could get double Bluegill, Murloc, and then play War Leader, and you are just putting out a ton of pressure. And really, that's what this deck is about. There are no bells and whistles. It's not trying to get to late game. It's actually usually trying to kill you around like turn 3.
Yeah, turn 4, turn 5 at the latest. And Malaysia is getting closer. Consecration actually only kills off Patches here. So 8 damage represented on board.
I mean, maybe you just bring out the True Silver, yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite going to be lethal for Lalasong just yet. Would need to pick up additional damage here. Savage Roar would do it.
Lalasong once again turning to the power of cosmic RNG.
Not even looking at the screen.
Bluegill, okay. Bluegill's good. Bluegill is damage.
It's pretty good.
That's what you want. So yeah, Bluegill, Hero Power. I mean, there was actually a tweet about this deck that I thought was really telling. The tweet was basically saying that Aggro Druid had some of the least total decisions you had to make, period. It was pretty much, how do you go wide on the board? How do you buff them? And then you're just drawing off the top and you're just looking for things that say damage. You know, Pirate Warrior, you know, people have said, oh, it's an aggro deck and it's not particularly difficult to play, but like, there are turns that you can get a lot stronger.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of thought.
Playing multiple minions on one turn, buffing weapons at key times, and that is not going to do it.
Consecration takes 3 off board. True Silver kills an additional 2, leaves you at 4. I think that's just game, Rob.
I think that is all she wrote.
It's going to leave 3 on board, plus the hero powers, 4.
Man, this is how Aggro Druid works. If you haven't seen this deck, and wow, Hallmark with the concede, that has to be really just disheartening for Hallmark and Kazakhstan in general, because when you lose to the Druid, you're basically just saying like, okay, well, they got the combination of low-cost minions and then the buff. And if they get 2 buffs, you're definitely dead. But like Mark of the Lotus, maybe you come back from if you're not Paladin.
Enchanted Raven, Firefly, Flame Elemental, turn 1 into Flame Elemental Mark of the Lotus. It was just, unfortunately, a mountain that Kazakhstan could not overcome in this case. Yes, the removal for the Paladin is incredibly efficient. It is fantastic, but it costs quite a bit of mana, and in most cases you need 2 cards together at the same time. So it was just more than Kazakhstan could overcome, and ultimately Malaysia is going to take that series 3-1.
I mean, impressive showing from Malaysia. We talked about how, you know, Peru kind of came out with unconventional decks.
Yeah.
Malaysia, really, aside from that Elemental Shaman, which we'll have to kind of figure out more later exactly what that list looks like, came out, they played a solid game. Like, aggro, I think it's a bad rap because you think like, oh, there was like no skill required or something like that. But like realistically, that deck is meant to do exactly that. It is meant to go to a very late heavy control deck like Paladin and just be like, do you have an answer before turn 4?
Then
no?
You're dead.
Yeah, you're dead. So that's exactly what that deck is meant to do. Really like to see the strategy employed. And, you know, congratulations to Malaysia. Again, early on in the Hearthstone Global Games, but getting that win gets them one step closer to actually getting out of groups.
And here we can see just how it all went down. Gilgamesh and Revenge CCS with 2 early wins. Naaman came back on the board with the Quest Rogue up against Chonger's Freeze Mage, but Lala Song was able to close it out with a very quick win with that aggressive Druid deck, having much more success than the Jade Druids that we saw today. I think that's going to be a deck that I definitely want to look at to see if people are still going to bring Jade Druid going forward.
Now, taking a look at the updated Group F standings, Canada and Malaysia now reign supreme. Belgium and Denmark will get their first chance at each other next week, and then Kazakhstan and France at the bottom. And, you know, we talked about what are the expectations for Group F. Canada, Belgium, France. There are some big names here in this group. Where do Malaysia and Kazakhstan fit? And I think now we actually have a little bit better of an understanding. And, you know, I want to say, not to take away anything from Kazakhstan, but I actually think Malaysia may be a force to be reckoned with going forward. It's clear they're on the same page. They had a plan with the decks they brought, so I really liked what we saw from them.
I did too. It all looked like they were really enjoying playing and speaking to each other, and they certainly performed very well. So it's definitely a team to follow going forward. One of the underdogs, but definitely performed incredibly well. And here we have the results from today. Once again, Thailand with a 3-2 victory over Peru, and then we just saw Malaysia 3-1 over Kazakhstan. The first victories for both of these teams.
Yeah, so that is actually going to do it for week number 2. This tournament has absolutely lived up to the hype. I've had a ton of fun, not only getting to see these different teams and matches, but having the opportunity to learn about the different cultures and the different foods that TJ tells us they enjoy.
Importantly, the foods.
Right.
They sound delicious.
But like I said, that's going to do it for week 2. If you have a chance, tune in this weekend, actually. Cora, myself, Frodan, Brian Kibler, Admirable, and 2 guys from So You Think You Can Cast, Neptune and Javarg, are going to be casting the Collegiate Hearthstone Championship on Saturday and Sunday. 8 of the best Collegiate Hearthstone teams scoring off for $160,000 in scholarship prize winnings. Going to be very exciting. Otherwise, Cora, you're actually casting DreamHack Austin next week. So
I am. I will not be here. I will be returning for week 4 of the Hearthstone Global Games, and I will be here throughout the rest of the tournament as well. But next week is going to be one week. I'll be in Austin.
But don't worry, we have a very special guest lined up, a veteran from both TESPA casting and the Hearthstone Championship Tour, So You Think You Can Cast program. But guys, that's going to do it for us here from North America in the California Burbank studio. Be sure to tune in to the Hearthstone Global Games when it goes live once again next Tuesday night at 1 a.m. PST.